Hello, and welcome back to another exciting interview in our show, Overcoming Overwhelm, a nervous system approach to health, wellness, and success. Today, I'm so excited to share the space with my incredible, beautiful, gifted colleague, Mia Saenz. We wanted to bring you kind of more like a conversation style where we can share with you some of the most important information, some of the most important things that we've learned along the way and that we share in the work that we do with people regarding overwhelm and the nervous system and why it's such an important piece of the overall puzzle when it comes to making change, creating your greatest life, living from that place, and finding joy and meaning and purpose. So Mia, thank you for not only for being the executive producer of this entire show, but also for joining me here and spending time and letting us have this conversation. I'm really excited to.
It's so needed, isn't it? We
Good.
love this work. It means so very much to us all around. And so we're just really grateful to be here with you all. So we are again really excited about this show. And I'm going to let Lori get us started on it. It has changed not only our lives individually, but it's changed our clients' lives. It's changed your lives. And this show will change your life because the information that's brought in the group of all these people gives it that extra special workshop feel, dig into. So do spend the time watching these shows because you have it in your email, right? So watch them, enjoy them, take your notes, do the work, enjoy the free gifts, and let us hear from you.
Yeah, and that's so important. I think back to my early transformation, and one of the things that was so pivotal for me was shows like this, where I would have all at once, right? Not just hearing a podcast here or there, but all at once. All of these incredible people sharing knowledge on the same subject. I grew by leaps and bounds in those times when I really devoted and opened myself up to what was being shared, what was being offered, because the free gifts really are very thoughtful and so well put together and bring this material to you in a way that you can bring it into your life. So then that's just some important things for you as the viewer to consider as you're thinking about, well, what do I do with this information, and how do I actually take it and make it meaningful in my own life. So I think it'd be really fun for us to kind of share, how this came to be. Like, how did we learn about the nervous system, its role that it plays, and how do we apply it in our lives? Kind of like we've gotten so much information, so I don't feel like maybe we don't need endless information. We need some real life examples and showing us how this gets put into practice in real life. So I'd love to understand, and some of this I know, but it's still going to be wonderful to kind of hear it. But how did you start working with the nervous system, understanding its importance, and then building that relationship with your nervous system that now supports you so incredibly?
Yeah, it's so incredible because when you think back on your journey, you recognize that that you've come a long way. That you know more than you used to, that you're progressing. So when you're starting out and moving through, it has to be in that space where you allow yourself the growth. So for me, I I pretty much was secluded growing up in a metaphysical religion. Wonderful. It was wonderful. I had friends in the neighborhood and all that. I'm not saying I was like a weirdo. I shouldn't even say that because that would be insulting other people if they lived on compounds, which they have children to play with too. My life was fairly normal, extremely traumatic, extremely traumatic. My mom was mentally insane. She had 3 different things: schizophrenia, bipolar, and narcissism, declared to her in the 70s by psychiatrists, which was very early. One of the first women to be, at least in LA, declared. So I grew up just like you all. So where did I go from here? I got the 5 women in my lives. I made friends with healers. I
Mm,
was a healer, but a different kind of healer. When
mm,
they met me, they were just like, oh my gosh, this is so great. We all shared our tools, our secrets, our love. So I think first starting out, finding a community. I mean, you can do this on your own as well. You have to do it on your own as well. But find a community. I guess what we're doing is bringing you the community. That's what it truly is. So when I first started this in 2009, 9 or 10, that's a long time ago. That's whatever, 15 years ago. And was fairly new in therapy type of bringing this forward. In fact, a lot of therapists didn't really get into it unless they ventured out into somatic because it has been around or started. It's actually ancient, but it's been brought forward fairly recently.
And actually, Mia, if I may, you bring up such an important point, and in the work that we've done with people, therapy is such a beautiful thing, right? And it definitely has an important place. But I do find that, work with the nervous system, somatic work is not something that is part of traditional education for therapists. And,
It's not.
thankfully, a lot of them are noticing that and finding out that the importance of it and seeking other types of, certifications and teachings. But it isn't yet something that is part of the traditional curriculum for therapists. And even though that's something, a bit surprising, I want us to start understanding that and knowing that so that, we can be part of the movement to bring more of this into kind of everyday care. We should be talking about trauma-informed care in every sense of the word, from our doctors to our dentists to certainly our therapists and our counselors. And until that happens, we're not going to have everything that we need to truly heal and grow. You and I have both experienced, so many clients who say, oh, I was in therapy for 15 years. And, didn't make
Nothing changed, right?
yeah, right. Didn't have real change in my life. Maybe I got a little more functional.
Mhm.
Maybe understood something a little bit more. But to actually have change, we have to go into the body. We have to work in the nervous system. So thank you for letting me just kind of pause there, because I think
Yeah.
it's something, a lot of people who have tried therapy, the reason why I think it's so important that they've tried therapy, they've not had success, and they've kind of given up on themselves. They might say, oh, I'm just so far gone, not even therapy can help me, right? And I don't want that to be anyone's perception of themselves. I think this is just a missing piece that not a lot of people are being given and shown. And so I appreciate that you brought that up, that you're, reminding us that it isn't part of necessarily mainstream.
Right, it's not. And you guys have probably, I'm looking at a picture that I want to just share off of. You guys have probably already been experiencing a lot of this like I was before I even knew. That's probably what brought you here, because you're open to it. So SE, somatic experiencing, is about touch, movement, resonance, breath, awareness, embodied self. So in that whole beautiful space, we get to grow. When we dance, we're working on our body. When we're doing breath work, we're working on our body. When we're doing other nervous system work, we're absolutely shifting our body. When I first came into this, it was about the body, but it was brought up to me in a different way, because I did dance, because I am a mystic, because I am sensual and sexual. It came to me that way, with a bunch of women who just wanted to have freedom of body. And that's really beautiful, because what it taught me was that it's okay to move. It's okay to listen to music. It's okay to have touch on my body. Nothing's wrong with that. We are born into, in the United States, and if you're in another country like Australia, like a couple of our hosts, the interesting thing about America is that we are a puritanical country. So we have been taught not to like our bodies. Sex is bad, all of that. That's the foundation of who we are. England joyously sent the Puritans here, and that's where we are. Now in Australia, they sent the prisoners there. So they have a different issue to deal with. So it's very interesting, one, to look at history and also to learn experientially through others. So we started talking even about the nervous system. Well, you asked me how my journey started. It started back then. It just kept propelling. I really got interested in wanting to teach it, not in the just in the self-love way, because everything for me is self-love or love. Actually, in my new book, there is no self-love. There is no unconditional love. How can there be conditions on love? How can we put ourselves out and away from the source of love? So, however you want to look at that, it's all up to you. But we are love, so let's be that. I lost my train of thought there because I was so excited about love. Oh, yes.
Oh,
So,
it's
the self-love is how I always started working with people. We would do meditations, breath work, whatever was needed with my individual clients. When we came together, we wanted to teach everybody how to heal themselves. We brought our work together. That's where I really got interested more in the nervous system and all the areas that come with it. I recently got to use it with a major surgery. The pain got so bad the second night I was on medication, I was drugged up from the surgery. The second night I started practicing my nervous system work and I started doing the breath work. And what I found instantly, my nurse was like, wow, that's beautiful how that shifted you. I also created an environment where I had a healer who was also a nurse with me for quite a while. So take care of yourself. What do you need? What do you need? And take those steps forward. We don't do that for ourselves. Again, this is why this is all interconnected with love, or let's say, again, self-love, because doing the work to recreate who you are expands that love for you, allows you to receive more love as you're healing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's incredible. So as we're thinking about this, I really appreciate too that you said all of these things, the movement, the dance, the just noticing the sensations of touch, all of these things can be somatic experiencing. But I would say they're an opportunity for somatic experiencing because we can go through life.
Growth. Yeah.
Yeah. And we can go through life in every way, doing these practices, but still shut down to the body. Right. And I know that might be a little bit hard to understand, but it's kind of the difference. People will ask me all the time, is yoga a somatic experiencing practice? And I will say it depends, because yoga, when you're in a class, and there's nothing wrong with this, there's so many benefits. I don't mean to say that doing yoga in any way is not beneficial. It's incredibly beneficial. But when we talk about a somatic experiencing practice, what we're really talking about is being in tune with the body, listening to the body, responding to the body, right? Having an experience with the body. And so just for example, taking yoga, if you're in a class and you're, focused on the teacher is saying, downward dog, the teacher's saying chair pose, whatever it is. And you're like, okay, chair, okay, got it. Okay, doing that. What's next? What is she going to say next? How is this going? Like, and you're engaged more in your mind and you're just telling your body to do stuff, but you're not actually experiencing, hearing from the body, like a beautiful, yoga. How do you want to move into? What is the pose that feels right? Oh, warrior feels right now. And, being in that and letting that energy of it be in the body and you being with the body, as opposed to, just doing what's prescribed. We can do those things totally cut off from the body, not even noticing what the body is experiencing. right? We may be thinking in the head, oh, how does my butt look in these tights? Is the person behind me thinking something? What am I going to do later? Gosh, I wish I could, do the variation of this pose like this person over here. I mean, we can be all up here and doing something within the body, but that's not somatic experiencing because we're not connected and listening and hearing and experiencing our body. So I just kind of wanted to, as a further point of clarification, because I know it's hard to understand what somatic experiencing is until, without some guidance, without really having some experiences that tap you in, tune you in to what's going on.
Can I jump in for a second?
Yes,
I
please.
do want to say about yoga, I do consider it, if it's done in a correct way, a somatic experience myself,
Absolutely.
because in the United States, it was reformulated for us Westerners in the not in the very beginning, but like in the 60s and 70s, maybe even 50s.
Mm.
But the real ancient, from East India, the people that are over there working it all the time, it's about the breath.
Oh, yeah.
It's about holding the positioning and being attuned to, well, I'll call it the divine. They all have, different God names and stuff. So it's about that. It's a deeper, richer practice. Here, it's
Yeah.
more of an exercise.
Which
But
is fine.
yeah, it is
As
fun.
an exercise.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I think it's an example that I think a lot of us are familiar with, where we can appreciate the difference between, doing something with your body versus somatic experiencing, where you're truly inside, following the lead of the body, and listening and having that deep connection. So I think that's an important distinction that we want to understand when we talk about somatic experiencing and, what is it really? I think that's a useful,
You and I think, have brought in the space of, let's heal people the fastest, best way we can. What's holding them down mostly is their trauma, right? So that's what settles into the body. So as Lori's talking about this, my head was like, yes, this is why we started this in the Greatest You Academy, so that you can move through your stuff faster than you normally would. When your body becomes in alignment with your somatic exercise and it becomes calm, you get to absorb everything in any of your healings, in any of your trauma, in any of your pain, whatever. It's really a beautiful experience because, as she said, it's being with yourself deeper. So I love that. I love that part. It's beautiful.
And it really adds to all the other modalities that we do use, with parts work, parts work being, recognizing the parts of us that are holding the wounds and tending to those. And we certainly have a lot of processes for that, but bringing the somatic aspect to the parts work, bringing the somatic aspect to the working with your thoughts. And, so it's that extra layer that really does catapult people into into the results that they want. And, I'm thinking about just very recently how we had that beautiful soul, Nicole, who was, struggling so deeply with the pain, could barely get to the restroom. There are all of these things happening for her, and doing a practice literally took that pain away, enabled her to process something from the past and be done with it. Like this huge breakthrough in a matter of minutes. And that's the kind of thing.
She trained herself too, right?
Yeah. It's right, because she was able to utilize.
It wasn't like a spell. She utilized it to the depth that she shifted. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And so that's when Mia said, oh my gosh, we love this work so much. We love this work so much because people have the ability to really shift, to go beyond that old story. Right. And maybe that's something that we could address is, where do the old stories come from and why are they so persistent? And and try to get through them. So question for you. How would you answer that? How would you help people understand why do I have these old patterns? Why am I doing the same things every day? Like, we're working up to, we're coming up at the end of October, offering our Freedom from Emotional Eating program. Enrollment will begin early in October for that. And so, that's a great area to kind of use as an example. Why do we wake up in the morning saying to ourselves, that's it, I am done overeating. I am done eating a gallon of ice cream when I'm super stressed. That's it. I'm not going to do that anymore. And then that night, finding ourselves heading over to the freezer to get the ice cream. What is going on there that these patterns are so deeply ingrained and so hard to overcome.
And what's so interesting about these patterns that we've created is they actually disrupt us so much that we hate ourselves. We have so much sorrow, so much pain. We yell at ourselves. And so you get to learn and be moving through spaces where you no longer do that. We also believe that in the calmness of the exercise, the self-talk can shift that as well.
Yeah.
Lori is the queen of freedom from emotional eating, literally. She's really beautiful and brilliant at it. If you were asking me a question as opposed to the audience, I wasn't clear on that. And so that's why I might not have quite answered the question.
Yeah, I wanted your perspective on where those old...
We like to include everybody.
I know we do that a lot, but where those old patterns come from, where is this, kind of lodged? Because it's so confusing. When our current self today, my resource, this is me, a grown-ass woman, and I am declaring I'm not going to do that with food anymore, right? And so why half an hour later am I, going for it? And this is what I hear from our clients, and this is who I work with to help them understand that. So
there's several reasons why, right? First of all, we're born into this world, these beautiful, happy, beautiful babies. And then from the very early stages, we start to build up our story of who we are. Because you guys, our parents, the people that raised us, even if they were aunts and uncles, were generally pretty young and had no experience. And so they don't know how to raise a child. They don't know how to have you grow in a, I don't want to say love, but in a balance. That's, we just didn't do that until the recent years. We've noticed that other old, younger than us, they're starting to work with their children differently. So it does come from the civic world, our world around us, and we create these stories that we can't bust through until we have a breakdown. And the interesting thing about food is a lot of us are disciplined with our food. It was either taken away or we had to sit there until we ate everything and you're sleeping at the table, or some people even got, I'm going to call it a paddling. Wasn't always paddling for some. Sometimes it was worse. So these things are, lots of fear is built up around the most glorious thing, food. It has to nourish our body. And there's cravings that come up because we're not eating properly because we're cheating. And so we're requiring this still in our system. And if you don't have the tools to emotionally support yourself as you work through that, you're going into a spinning cycle. There are many times I talk about when I got my first, that sounds funny, when my first husband and I divorced. I've only been married twice, still married. And I started dating, and I had never drank in my life. I was 45 years old, and I would go out and have fun like everybody likes to do. And I would make myself sick. And I would do that night after night because there was fun attached to it. And then I realized, what are you doing? This is where the work came in. It shifted my life. I also include gentleness in the practice that we give. If you talk gentle to yourself in all of this, things shift and change. It wasn't even maybe a few months not even in my life had changed that way. So I love the fact that Lori is doing the emotional eating, because we feel scared, we feel hurt, we're yelling at ourselves. I remember, it makes me emotional because I was so mean to myself, as I'm either having diarrhea or vomiting or whatever. Not on purpose, just my body was so sick. And so to love yourself and to love your body enough to heal it, to take the time to spend nurturing, doing these things. These are nurturing um, uh, practices. They do change the way we develop ourselves. They do change the way we think. And it doesn't have to be frightening. That's the bottom line. When you gain your power, there is nothing greater.
Yeah.
You can leave that story behind. You're obviously going to still continue with your new way of being. And guess what? You get to grow something else. You get to expand your life in a beautiful way instead of it being frightened of what you're going to eat or maybe overeat that night.
Yeah, fear is such an important part of this. And you know the way I teach people, one of the things that I really help them understand is like the food right now is like a life preserver. You're out in the middle of the ocean and you don't feel confident in your swimming, and the food is providing you that sense of safety. And the thought of taking that away, right? Starting that diet on Monday, or, that's it, I'm never going to do it again. That's a terrifying place to be, because there's a part of you that needs that life preserver to get through, right? And so the beautiful compassion that you're talking about, that's what we do. We don't rip that life preserver away and say, you're going to learn how to swim, right? Would you throw a child into the pool and say, figure it out? Of course we wouldn't do that. And that's the same thing here. So in the program, where I'm never going to work with somebody and say, give me that. It's time, right? It's going to be a matter of learning how to paddle your feet first while you're hanging on to the life preserver. It's always there. It's always available. But you're going to learn to paddle your feet. Then you're going to learn to be on the outside of the life preserver, hanging on, right? Kicking with your feet, getting the feel of the water. Then you're going to let go with one hand. And then pretty soon you're going to feel good letting go for periods of time, a few minutes at a time. And then when the time is right and you've learned how to swim, you're going to joyfully set the life preserver aside so that you can go out and explore and live life without this limitation of, having to stay in this little tiny space. And that's what the journey out of emotional eating is like, right? And it's so counter to what we typically think of, like, how do I learn to control myself? How do I just stop this ridiculous behavior? Okay. I have people who have been trying that and that control
Right?
for 70 years. 70 years. Trying that control. It doesn't work.
Right.
It
Right.
never works, right? It's this gentle, loving approach where you understand, what need is this meeting for me? How do I meet it in a way that's in alignment with my authentic self, with the life that I want to create? So the points that you're making about approaching this with compassion and watching yourself, grow beyond it without ever really,
Yeah.
ripping things away and saying, that's it, we're going to control this.
Yeah. And Lori, the same thing is true for the Greatest You Academy on the emotional side, right? Healing your other emotions in life, your trauma, if you had abuse, if you have your mother wounds, if you lack self-love. So we've got you covered. The guests got you covered. We're all, here to share and move forward. What else would we like to share before we say goodbye?
I mean, I think, that's such an important thing. I think part of self-love, and I know for me, I was working on myself on my own for a while, because I didn't, for whatever reason, I didn't think, oh, I should be able to do this on my own, is one big limiting belief that I had when I was, early on. I thought, well, I'm not worth that money. Think of the important things that money could be spent on. Oh, I don't have the time. Well, I'm afraid of what might come up in the pace at which, someone might push me into growth. And so, for all of these reasons, I really held myself back, which is okay because I learned a lot in that space. But, we don't have to spend years trying to figure stuff out, trying to get past our old limiting negative ways of thinking and being. And so, there are a lot of really incredible people that we're bringing to you on the show. And hopefully, you're going to resonate with someone. You're going to hear their message and you're going to recognize this is the person that's going to be able to take your hand and lead you into your next higher version of yourself. And, as you said, here you and I have the Greatest You Academy, which is the place where, building on the foundation of that healthy, regulated nervous system, we can then take you into your authentic self, discovering who that is. Who are you really? What would really be meaningful and purposeful in your life? Getting that clarity. Then, honoring who you are, meeting those needs, learning to work with your thoughts, right? Because your thoughts do create your life. Learning how to navigate emotions instead of being taken down by them. How do I use them and see them as my brilliant guidance system? How do I, do relationships in my life? How do I take care of myself from a physical standpoint, my health, my sleep, my food, all of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, okay, now that I have that strong, solid foundation, I've got access to my greatest self. What do I want to create? And that's where we start in the Greatest You Academy. That's where we start to dive in. All right, what are you ready to create? Here's the step-by-step process to take you from where you are right now into actually creating that. So it's a full, comprehensive body, mind, spirit transformation, right? And then for those people who struggle with emotional eating, right, the first step is to get free of that and overcome those challenges with food. And so for that, we have the Freedom from Emotional Eating program. The Academy is open for enrollment now. The Freedom from Emotional Eating, the class begins on October 30th. And so you're going to get some really valuable information. You're going to have the opportunity to participate in a 3-part video series that will help you understand the 3 keys to overcoming emotional eating. So, you're here now. And that's the important thing. We're going to be, offering you a lot of really incredible information, free resources, support. We're going to, see if you're a good candidate for one of the programs and invite you into that. And so your growth is inevitable when you make that commitment to yourself and make that decision that it's time. The resources are here for you. And we just can't wait to support you. And I hope this show is part of that, and that it, really does help you understand the connection between your nervous system and all of the things that you want to do, be, and have, and for the joy that you want to experience in your life.
Beautiful. And Lori and I both are giving gifts that one is more geared to, is it geared to the nervous system or is it geared to emotionally? Okay, beautiful.
Yeah.
And then my gift is the emotional side for what we run through the Academy, the authentic self, the love, the nervous system. So you're going to get 2 beautiful gifts. And I also want to say that with our last show, the Summer of Self-Love, I got bombarded with a lot of thank you guys. Thank you. First, I'm going to say that. Bombarded with a lot of people wanting my book that I talked about. And then I had to just say, I went into a health thing, which I mentioned, a surgery and all that. So it had to be put on hold. I want you to know that Lori and I both, so don't get frustrated and think that you're missing out on something. Lori and I both have our websites being revamped. They're still there, but they're being revamped. And we also will have some free downloadable books for you that we wrote, each of us, separate from what you're getting today. So look for all that stuff. Be a part of our community. We're growing into a pretty large community between our email subscriber lists and our groups on Facebook. We have a couple of groups on Facebook. We're trying to gear them all to one. Well, actually, we can't because emotional eating is so special. Yeah, so just know that, and ask us. We don't mind the questions. I just want you to know that this stuff is coming, because we had such a beautiful influx of desire after the last show and during the last show that I just wanted to forewarn you, since I mentioned it, that it is coming. It is coming.
Yeah. So stay tuned, because you're an important part of our community, and your growth is important to us. And we will continue to support you in every way that we can. So thank you so much for being part of the community. You give purpose to what we do every day. And thank you for watching and participating in the series. We very much welcome your questions, your input, and we just can't wait to continue walking with you and really supporting you in every way that we can.
Thank you all. Bye.